My guest today is Deborah Henley. She has over 20 years in psychology and personal development. Formerly a competitive oarswoman, sailor and swimmer with qualifications in neurolinguistics, hypnotherapy and the expressive arts. She draws on some extraordinary life experiences, a keen commercial sensibility and a quirky and creative perspective on life. Her book, Your Leadership Story, was shortlisted in the Business Book Awards and has become a transformational program for speakers to find their message and story. Working with global bluechips such as AmEx, Microsoft and the MOD, she inspires her audiences to bring the life and soul back into their organizations. Her vision is to equip leaders to create cultures in which everyone can shine, even or especially when they feel perfectly flawed. So welcome to the show, Deborah. How are you doing today?
Very well. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
It's lovely to have you here. So because the show is called Unbroken, we always start with the first question, which is, what does the word unbroken mean to you?
Well, when I think of unbroken, I think of the soul, which I think of as a little bit like water. It doesn't matter how you stretch it or bend it or twist it or contort it. You can't break water. And in the same way, in our essence, there's something about us, our soul, that can't be broken, our essential self. And yet on the surface, we may feel those cracks and those pinches and, the discomfort. And that can happen all the time. Essentially, we're never broken.
I love the connection with water. No one out of all of my so far 114 episodes has ever mentioned water, but when you think of water, it is always flowing. It can get blocked sometimes, and maybe it flows a bit too fast, but actually there's always a drip, drip, drip. So we're always going forward. So, yeah, beautiful. So you talk about that you base a lot on your extraordinary life experiences. And I know you had an unusual one when you were about 11 because your mum left. Most people think about father leaving the family home, but can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, well, I grew up in Hong Kong. We were expats in Hong Kong, and the lifestyle in Hong Kong was very sort of fast paced. Buildings, very tall buildings would go up and come down, and people were always sort of moving forward. And I think the lifestyle was quite a shallow one. And I remember my mum used to say, I would give anything to just be back in England with a mug of tea with my friends, having a good old chat around the kitchen table. In the end, she left my father. Their marriage wasn't working out. She had an affair. She was having an affair, and then she left and went to England, and I was sort of left managing my father, who was absolutely heartbroken.
And you were just an only child, or you had brothers or sisters?
I had a younger brother who'd gone to a boarding school kind of at around the same time in England, a 9-year-old, which in itself is quite a thing. And then my younger sister, who was, I think, 4 at the time, went with my mother. I thought at the time that she had, left the family. But it's interesting how as a child, I didn't think about her leaving me. I thought she had left my father, who was devastated. So my feelings were put on hold. It was all about making sure he felt okay. That was all I was concerned about. Because it was terrifying and devastating to see my father cry at this big, strong man, be torn apart. So my life became about just making sure that he was happy.
So you took on that duty to look after your father, but actually, when you look back now, she left both of you, really, didn't she?
Well, in many ways she did. And it wasn't until I was 35 that I actually discovered what had happened was she had come to the UK with a plan to set up home with this man that she'd been having an affair with. When she got, and then bring the children over and sort of start a new family. I mean, rightly or wrongly, that was her intention. I didn't realize it was at the time. And when she got to the UK, there was a note from him saying, sorry, I couldn't go through with it. I couldn't leave my wife. When I was 7, we went on holiday to Kashmir, which sounds sort of very glamorous, but it was very sort of strange. We were staying on a houseboat, and one of the workers on a nearby houseboat started talking to me and invited me onto the houseboat and took me off into the bathroom, and he raped me. He wasn't violent, and it wasn't he wasn't able to, go very far in that, but it was enough for me to he said to me, don't tell anyone. And I went straight back home and told my mother.
And how did your mother receive that? How was she?
She just tried to console me. I felt very dirty, and I just wanted to have a bath and just get clean, and she sort of just helped sort of bathe me and clean me up. And then I had to identify this man. All the workers were sat around a room, and I had to go around and shake hands with every man, and I could see this man second from the end. And I had to identify him.
And this was for the police, or your parents asked you to identify him?
The person running the sort of all the houseboats, I think, and I think he went. I don't really know what happened. I asked afterwards what happened to the nasty man, as he was called. What happened to the nasty man? And my father said he went to prison. And I was sort of horrified. Wow, going to prison. I'd never met anyone, I hadn't really computed that it was a criminal thing. I hadn't met anyone who'd been to prison. And it just seemed, I was sort of quite shocked. Everything there was very strange anyway. It just compounded the whole sense that I didn't really matter. My soul didn't matter. Who I was inside didn't matter. What mattered was this
Just the exterior.
The exterior, and particularly, how that was an object for men to do with what they wanted. They had these sort of predatory urges, and that was just the way they were. Don't trust any men. That's what they're all like. And so when I went, I was in my, I think early on at university, and I wasn't interested in a lot of the boys, and I'd probably send out signals to say I wasn't interested, and they would call me frigid. Why aren't you sort of putting out? Why are you so frigid? And so when I went to this wedding, I was dancing with somebody, and we went outside, and he started he started kissing me. And at first I thought, well, I don't want to kiss him. And then I thought, well, I better, because I'm, frigid. I should be putting out. So I did. And it went further and further, and he ended up raping me. The next day, I went to see a counsellor at the university. Actually, I didn't go to see a counsellor. I went to the nurse because I wanted a morning after pill. I'm still in absolute denial that this really mattered. I wouldn't really have said rape. He just had his way with me, and I gave absolutely no indication that I had any interest in what was going on, or that I wanted it.
So there was no consent. So it was without a doubt rape, but you didn't ever label it that at the time.
But as a speaker, the thing I really most passionately want to talk about is standing up for your soul. Mm-hmm. And it's taken.
So if you don't do the walk yourself, how can you coach other people to do it? So, yeah,
I have to stand up for my own soul.
Because I know you don't often speak about these incidents that we've spoken about today. So I'm wondering how it does feel to stand up for your 7-year-old, stand up for your 20-year-old who never had that voice, who never even realized it was rape. What does that do to you now to speak publicly about it?
Well, it seems like it's an honoring thing. It's honoring and blessing my soul to say these are things that happened, and I do know that, now I do know that they're no fault of my own at all. And also, I have found real joy in life. And that's a really important place to get to, I think, before sharing these things in a public forum.